And welcome back, everybody, as we continue here on Sports Talk. Excited about having Jaffe back with us from Fangraphs.com for our weekly Wednesday chat. You can follow Jay on Twitter at J_Jaffe and check out his great work at Fangraphs.com as we get through our weekly baseball chat. Hey, good to have you back. It's now we're past the midway point of May. So many great topics to talk about as far as baseball goes. Let's get into the interesting conversation involving the White Sox. They won again today, beat Minnesota 2-1, and Lucas Giolito had a terrific performance today. But that's not what people are talking about as far as the White Sox. No, this is now about Tony LaRussa, the manager of the White Sox, and his star rookie, Yermin Mercedes, who swung on a 3-0 pitch, hit a home run, and as a result, received an earful from his manager, who still says that respect for baseball is the top priority, something that Mercedes doesn't have. What's your take on it, Jay?
I mean, can we find a time machine and send Tony LaRussa back to the century from which he came? I'm serious. Why are we talking about a 77-year-old manager and how out of touch he is, instead of all the good stuff that's happening in baseball? It's not your fault. This is stupid. This is just like, why does baseball let itself be hijacked by this archaic way of thinking? There's so much to unpack here, and to me, the real problem is, where does Tony LaRussa get his managing ethics from, that he's throwing his own player under the bus like that and encouraging the other team to drill him? I mean, if you've got a problem with what Yermin Mercedes did, and look, we can debate the propriety of that. Keep it in the clubhouse and say, we're dealing with that internally. That's what a good manager does. Now the White Sox players have every reason to think, this guy's not going to have my back. If you're a player's manager, you're supposed to have your players back in public. With regards to what Mercedes did, the Twins had put a position player out there, Williams Astudillo, to pitch. All bets are off when that happens. It's a ridiculous situation. He's throwing 47-mile-an-hour eephus pitches. Where's the respect for the game with that? Look, I enjoy watching a position player pitch in a blowout once in a while. It's fine. But the whole thing takes on kind of a circus-like atmosphere at that point. And who's looking for a sign on 3-0 when you're up 11 runs? Just give it a rest. And you're playing beer league softball at that point. Nobody should be looking for signs. So I think there's a lot of culpability on both sides. If Rocco Baldelli, the Twins manager, told Duffy to hit him, he ought to be suspended. Duffy himself ought to be suspended, because that's just Bush League stuff right there. Taking offense at like that. And it's Bush League on LaRussa's part to be throwing his player under the bus and encouraging the opposition to throw at him.
I'll say this. What's really amazing to me about the whole story is the White Sox are in first place. They're 3 games ahead of Cleveland right now, and they're doing this without really 2 of their best young players. They're 2 outfielders in Luis Robert, who's out, and then also the other great young outfielder, Eloy Jimenez, who they're both going to miss the majority of the season, and somehow the White Sox are still putting it together like this.
Yeah, and yet we're talking about their, septuagenarian manager and his old world ways, and it's just focus on the players, focus on the team. Mercedes is a great story, leading the American League in batting average, and just really kind of coming out of nowhere after bouncing around the minors for the better part of a decade to suddenly become one of their top offensive contributors.
Mercedes also said that, he's not going to change. It's that this is the way he plays the game, and if he needs to do something different, it's going to hurt his overall play, which I thought was really interesting, because now you've got star rookie against old manager, and there's no give and take on the two. So you know what, LaRussa would be insane to bench him for this, and he's just gonna have to deal with the fact that this is the new game. It's time to just adapt and not worry about what it was like in the 1960s or 70s.
Yeah, and you've also got Tim Anderson and Lance Lynn publicly expressing their support for Mercedes here, and those are two team leaders there, right? You're one 5-game losing streak away from losing the clubhouse here, as I see it. So if this all blows up, we'll know why.
Hey, you wrote about a couple of injured players in the last couple of days on Fangraphs, the latest being Mike Trout of the Angels. And then prior to that, you talked about Conforto and McNeil both being out for the Mets. Let's start first with Trout. He is a guy that when he's healthy, he's right there, the best in the game, and was having a great season up until this injury. And it seems like he did a terrific job of avoiding the injury bug for the majority of his first 8 to 10 years in baseball. But now, recently, we've started to see Trout hit the IL a little bit more, and this one could be a big blow to the Angels.
Yeah, this could potentially be the longest, his longest stint on the injured list. He missed 39 games in 2017 for a thumb injury, which was a fluky injury, but he needed surgery on that. This, is a little bit more disconcerting because it's the kind of soft tissue injury that players become more vulnerable to as they age. And for him, he's like, I thought I'd been hit by a line drive. It hurt so much. Just really a bummer because he was running on a 2-out pop-up, eyewash stuff, and all of a sudden he pulls into third base and he's like, uh-oh, something is really wrong. He had been off to an incredible start in April, his best April in his entire career. Had cooled off a bit in May, but was still leading the majors in on base percentage, wins above replacement, and WRC plus, our total batting stat. And so, this is a huge bummer. And the Angels have had enough trouble as it is. This was supposed to be their best shot at getting to the playoffs, at least in the last 5 years. A healthy Shohei Ohtani, who's been just remarkable on a night after night basis. Fully functioning Trout, getting Anthony Rendon back from the injured list. It was all looking at least like they might have a run in them to get back into this thing. But without 6 weeks of Trout, that's just, at a minimum, I don't see much chance for that. And that just means another October without baseball's best player.
No doubt. And Oakland and Houston are near the top right now of that division in that 1-2 punch. And we've seen a lot of Oakland and Houston over the years, and you're kind of waiting to see if the Rangers can get back into the mix. The Angels and the Mariners, who have always been kind of a fun story to follow with their youth movement. But really, it seems like it's Houston and Oakland, and I wouldn't be surprised if those two keep slugging it out throughout the summer.
Yeah, those two teams, I think, are head and shoulders above the rest. It was always going to be a bit of a long shot for the Angels to get in there. The Astros, despite the fact that their pitching did not look as good on paper coming into this year as it had been in the past, have really come up with big with their some of their arms and are getting some good production on the offensive side. The A's, I don't know how they do it, but they always managed to be competitive as well. They've got a good core there. The Angels were going to have to do a whole lot right in order to stay in the playoff picture, and just they're not getting the breaks.
As far as the Mets go, they're in first place in what has been so far a very subpar NL East. I love this division on paper at the start of the year. Hasn't worked out that way for a lot of these teams. And those injuries for the Mets, Pilar getting hit in the face by the 95-mile-an-hour fastball was ugly. And then Conforto and McNeil, two guys that are very much a part of that offensive firepower that the Mets have, go down. So you wonder how New York is going to be able to cope with all these guys going down with injuries.
Yeah, they had a lot of depth in their infield, and so they could have withstood, loss of a couple of players here and there for a spell. But their outfield depth is just so severely compromised right now. They had 3 guys make their major league debuts this week playing in the outfield, and none of them is what you'd call a prospect. Well, actually, one of them maybe, but it's just they're just ill-suited to handle this, especially after losing Pilar to that just terrifying fastball to the face. The good news is they've got some guys on the way back, including JD Davis, and Noah Syndergaard just had his first rehab start today. So in time, I think they'll be all right. I mean, they're leading the division. The Braves, who have won the last 3 division titles, are really kind of on the ropes themselves. They're one of their best pitchers, Huascar Ynoa, broke his hand punching a dugout bench on Sunday. So he's going to be out for at least 2 months. And Mike Soroka, who missed just all of last year due to an Achilles tear, has had some complications in returning there. So I'm writing about that for tomorrow, actually. But they don't look like they're going to be making any traction here. So the Mets have proven that despite all their injuries, which have brought them to one regular player producing at an above average level who's active right now, and that's Pete Alonso, have nonetheless stayed afloat despite all these injuries to their lineup, and even to Jacob deGrom, who's on the injured list, and Taijuan Walker, who had to leave Monday's start with what they called left side tightness. So, they're hoping for the best here, but since none of the other teams in the division want to make their move right now, the Mets are staying afloat.
We continue our conversation right now with Jay Jaffe from Fangraphs.com, and you can follow on Twitter at J_Jaffe. Hey, you wrote about Albert Pujols. Now, this is a fascinating storyline because the Angels and Pujols in that final year ultimately let him pack his bags. He wanted more playing time. They felt that with Jared Walsh in the lineup, there was too much going on to give him that spot. So ultimately, they let him loose. And you figure nobody might re-sign him or sign him. And then all of a sudden the Dodgers come into play. And he's starting batting cleanup this first night, wearing number 55, and he gets an RBI single. Now the Dodgers are already loaded. So whose side do you take here, Jay? Was Pujols right to want to get out of his deal with the Angels because of playing time, and now ultimately realizing that he's going to be more of that role player with the Dodgers and an everyday player at this point in his career?
I don't know. We've heard contradictory information about, Pujols says he wasn't asking for more playing time. I think, I think the Angels wanted to get out from under this. I think his time had run its course. They wanted to play Jared Walsh regularly. Now, of course, they've got so many injuries that they probably would welcome Pujols back, because the alternatives in the outfield with Trout out are pretty grim, having already lost Dexter Fowler to injury as well. But the Dodgers, I think, for them, they've had a ton of injuries, and it didn't seem like initially that the move made sense. But just a few hours after they announced it, Corey Seager broke his hand, and suddenly the lane for Albert Pujols to get playing time just pretty much opened up right there before us, because the Dodgers had decided that Gavin Lux could slide over to shortstop, and they could use Max Muncy at second base. And since Lux is essentially a platoon player, he can't hit lefties to save himself. And Pujols, as a matter of fact, still can, relative to his inability against righties. Suddenly, it's Albert Pujols, platoon first baseman, which makes a lot more sense than Albert Pujols, Hall of Fame pinch hitter, or whatever they had him penciled in as. So there are a lot of moving parts. But the Dodgers, so long as they don't have Cody Bellinger, and Zach McKinstry, and Edwin Rios, and who's going to be out for the season. I mean, they've got so many injuries there that they really have to kind of move some parts around. And this actually makes some sense, at least in the early going. I don't know that this is a situation that's going to last the season, but the Dodgers didn't have to commit to this to last the rest of the season. They just need to get through the next few weeks here till Bellinger gets back. And if Pujols can adapt well to this reduced role, they'll keep him around. And if not, all he's cost them is the minimum.
I'll tell you this much, the Dodgers are playing good as of late. So are the Giants, so are the Padres. All three have been pretty hot over their last 10 games. Matter of fact, the Pods just got back Hosmer and Tatis today from the IL, which is important because they were on for the COVID tests. And, couldn't have come at a better time for San Diego as they, try to keep pace with the Giants. Dodgers clawing back. The NL West has been so much fun since the beginning of the season, and it seems like it's just going to continue that way through the summer.
Yeah, the Padres did very well to hold themselves up without Tatis and Hosmer. It helped that they played the Rockies in 2 series while those two guys were sidelined by their positive tests. But yes, the Giants have proven themselves to be at least semi-serious contenders so far, and they're the ones in first place right now with a 26-16 record, half game ahead of the Padres, 2 games ahead of the Dodgers. I don't think they have the talent to stay in this, but at the same time, they've done an impressive job of putting themselves in there. And so it's going to be fun to see how this race develops.
Tell me what you're going to be working on at Fangraphs later this week.
Like I said, I've got a piece here on the Braves injuries, Inoa and Soroka. Really not sure actually what's next. Discussed the possibility of doing a Bryce Harper piece, but I ceded that to one of my colleagues here. So I'm kind of looking for whatever's next here. trying to come up with something fun because I've been writing about injuries all week, and it's getting me down.
Well, I'll say this, as far as Noah goes, and we said this on the show last couple of days, one thing that's never changed throughout the course of baseball and sports for that matter, when you try to get into a fight with either a wall or a bench, the wall or bench will win every single time.
Yeah, and you got to heed Crash Davis's advice and don't use your pitching hand. The last guy who did it that I could think of is Hunter Strickland, who's got quite the reputation as being a nuclear loose type. Hard thrower with a 10-cent head who broke his pitching hand. I think it was 2018, and this goes right in there. It's just a dumb thing to have happen, and you're never going to hear the end of it.
Why can't everybody just be like Bo Jackson and snap a bat over their leg like a twig the way he used to do when he was doing
Right.
All right, let's wrap it up. Beer pick of the week. What would you like to talk about this week, Jay?
Okay, I got a nice one here from Threes Brewing. This one's new to me. It's their Imagined Reality IPA. This is a Galaxy-driven IPA, Galaxy hops. It's I think about 6.8% ABV. Hazy IPA with citrus and papaya and pineapple notes. So it's got kind of tropical, no bitterness at all. Really nice crispness to it, though, that I quite enjoyed. It seemed a little bit different from some of the other hazy IPAs of theirs that I usually enjoy, and was quite glad to pick up a 4-pack.
Good stuff. Love it. We'll talk to you again right back here next Wednesday. Thanks for the time as always, Jay.
All right. Sure thing, Steve.